Hello. Hello, hello, hello. This did not get done. Hello. Hello, Rachel. It seems that you're the only one here today. So hello. At least so far. That's better. Oh, that's why. This is not letting people know. Yeah, Discord didn't ping for some reason. I just posted it. Hey, Linda. How's you doing? Morning, Laura. Super hot. Not in a good way. Yeah. Feel that. I feel that. Whoop. I think so. I don't think it's maybe it started already. I don't think it has, but yes, that is my understanding is that today is supposed to be the day. Oh, maybe it is.
Our 10-minute rounds of questioning. I'll start and then Senator.
It just started.
Illinois. I've long been concerned about concentration and anti-competitive conduct in healthcare technology, but particularly in agriculture. Family farmers deserve fair prices. I held a hearing on anti-competitive activities in this committee last October on the subject of agriculture. As I recall, as a result of that hearing, the president issued an executive order and an investigation was started in your department, and I've sensed some pause in that right now. So if confirmed, do you have a commitment that the Justice Department will make antitrust enforcement a priority? And since I think there aren't too many people in the Justice Department know much about agriculture, with some concentration on agriculture.
Chairman, absolutely. You're right. President Trump issued an executive order. I have worked already closely with Secretary Rollins on this very issue. We recently held a press conference announcing some of the work that we're doing to not only deal with the anti-competitive behavior
Morning, Sparky.
That we've seen, but also to help ease prices in the cattle market around the country. So yes, Chairman, I commit to that.
Yeah. Our committee has received a lot of outreach about the department's litigation position in Louisiana versus FDA. The plaintiffs in this case challenged the relaxed regulation governing mail-order abortion drugs. Can you tell the committee about this case and explain what the department's doing?
Chairman, first,
Hey, PJ.
President Trump is the most pro-life president
Oh my
in
gosh.
history. And the work that this department's doing in that space is something that hasn't
He
been
is
done for
such
10
an
years. For
idiot.
the first time in a decade, HHS and the FDA are actually taking a real look at what's happening with some of these abortion pills and whether they're actually safe or not. As it relates to the
Well, that's
litigation
Senator
you referenced,
Grassley, PJ.
it
So
would be
yeah, he is very
it would be wrong
monotone
for me
and
to
very
talk about any
old.
litigation strategy beyond what's in our briefs, but suffice to say, Chairman, that as we talk about in our briefs, we are not in any way defending what Biden and what his administration did with what respect to that judge. But beyond that, I don't want to comment on the strategy about that litigation.
This committee has also received outreach concerning the department's handling of the investigation and release of Epstein files and your role in it. Some allegations include problematic redactions, insufficient effort to follow investigative leads, a refusal to meet with victims, and questions regarding the transfer of Maxwell to lower security prison. I wanted you to take the opportunity to respond to these allegations. What would you like this committee to know regarding these files?
When President Trump signed the Epstein Transparency Act, the Department of Justice undertook a Herculean task to review millions and millions of potentially responsive files. We were required under the statute to do this expeditiously and very quickly. The Department of Justice did so. We reviewed over 6 million pages. Many of these pages were not responsive. And what I mean by that is we intentionally over-collected potentially responsive documents. So for example, there was a case going on in Florida at the same time as the Jeffrey Epstein case involving another defendant named Epstein, having nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. When we collected materials, we collected everything involving Epstein, including the Epstein that had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. So the review of materials included non-responsive materials. The reviewers were qualified, experienced attorneys within the department and the FBI. They took pains to apply appropriate redactions. There were mistakes that were made, and so approximately 1% of the redactions had to be fixed after we released the Epstein files. Chairman, we had dozens of lawyers on call 24/7 whenever we learned that any victim's name had been improperly not redacted. We immediately took the document down and fixed it as soon as we could. That doesn't excuse the mistakes of which I take responsibility, but it does mean that we tried to fix them. We complied
So many
with
new
the
excuses.
Act. It required us complying with judges' rules in New York, which required us to redact certain victims' names, even if the victim was also somebody who participated in criminal conduct. The judge did not allow, judges in New York did not allow us to unredact those names. The other thing that we did, Chairman, is we made unredacted versions of the entire database available to everybody in this body. And we did that because of transparency. Remember, for 4 years, there wasn't a peep about Jeffrey Epstein. The Biden administration did nothing to be transparent about the Epstein case. We have been extraordinarily transparent in not only producing the records, but letting unredacted
You didn't have a
versions be available
choice.
to
It's called
anybody
the
in this
law.
body. And if, after reviewing unredacted materials, a member had concerns about why something was redacted, they brought them to the department's attention, and we addressed that. So I want to make sure the American people know that this administration, when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, has been more transparent.
No, they have not.
Than any
No,
past
they have not.
administration, than
Being
Biden was
forced
or
to by a
anybody
law
else.
does not
And
make you
what we did is
transparent.
we complied with the law, and if we learn a new material, we will most certainly review it and make it available. When it comes to the victims of this horrible man, we will never not talk to victims. We will never not do everything we can to prosecute anybody that committed any crimes against any of these women. So that narrative is false. We have spoken with over 30 representatives of dozens and dozens of victims since this process started.
Sure you
Any
have.
victim, if they're
Not
here
according to
today,
the victims,
I
you
would
haven't.
encourage them or their lawyers to meet with the FBI. We will 100% investigate. There are no closed investigations.
You said that it was closed.
If we learn next week, if we learn next month that there's an individual that we can investigate, indict, and prosecute out of the Epstein files, you better believe it, we will.
What if,
And so,
what if the
we
person
worked
who
hard,
comes up is Trump?
Hardworking lawyers within the department.
What if the
to do
person who
right
comes
thing
up is
with
Trump?
to comply with the act, and we did, and we'll continue to do so.
I mean, this is Todd
Excellent.
Blanche.
Team
He's
possessed
trying to
and
be the
reviewed
official
congressional
attorney
information
general.
and other sensitive materials when they shouldn't have and they were advised not to. Describe the steps you've taken to impose accountability so that this egregious and partisan misconduct never happens again.
The biggest thing we can do, Chairman, is be transparent about what happened. And that requires us doing a check on ourselves and on the work that happened before us, and being transparent with this body and providing records to you. I think when the American people understand and learn what happened and the egregious abuses that happened, it will be a check on making sure it never happens again. We strive
Yeah, except
every
for the
day
person as
to not
president
only
was
move
part of that
forward as a
problem.
department doing the right thing, but to make sure that anything that happened in the past, whether it's releasing emails or admitting to things that we did and the department
Oh
did
yeah,
that we
Chuck
shouldn't have
Grassley
done,
is.
to being transparent with the American people about that.
Yeah.
That's the best we can do, and that's what we're doing.
I made messages public between Jack Smith's office that appeared to relate to the Trump classified document case. Those messages showed government personnel left open a classified facility and potentially mishandled classified information, causing a security violation. While defense counsels to Trump, did the government apprise you of
Chuck
these
Grassley
issues?
absolutely
And
needs to
secondly,
go.
did the Biden Justice Administration do any investigation into this misconduct?
We were never advised at that time when I was defense counsel to President Trump, and I'm not aware of any investigation that was started for that alleged conduct.
The Justice Department must do a full and complete investigation into this matter. This will probably have to be my last question. On March the 15th this year, I made public a signed and sworn statement from an FBI official. That statement says two important things. Special Counsel Mueller's team lacked a legal basis to pursue a FISA renewal of the Waleed Ferez and investigate Thomas Barak, but did so anyway. What steps have you taken to investigate these very troubling criminal allegations? And if you haven't taken any action, why not?
We are investigating that, Chairman, and it would be inappropriate in this setting to get into the details of that investigation, but the sworn affidavit that we reviewed that you provided does raise serious allegations, yes.
Thank you very much. Senator Durbin.
Thank you much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Blanche, I have a few questions I'd like to ask you. Is it not true that Congress had to pass a law requiring the Trump administration to disclose the Epstein files? The Epstein Files Transparency Act passed by bipartisan roll calls in the House and Senate to finally get the files made public?
President Trump signed that law.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course he did, after overwhelming numbers of the House members and Senate members voted for it on a bipartisan basis because the administration would not voluntarily produce these documents. Now, I've mentioned...
That's not true.
Well, what part
Yes,
of
it is true.
We were prohibited by law.
No,
from-
you were
from
not.
producing those documents.
No, you were not.
This is the Judiciary Committee. There are laws that did not allow us to produce those documents, which we made plain in numerous court filings. So and President Trump had said from day one to release the files, even when he was running.
Yeah.
And so, yes, he signed it into law and we complied with it.
I remember, and everyone in the audience remembers, the links that the administration went through to delay production of these documents to the point where Congress did an extraordinary thing, discharge motion in the House to bring this matter before them and vote on a bipartisan basis to compel your administration to disclose those documents. Let me talk to you for a moment about the survivors who are in the room. There are 10 individuals who were exploited and abused by Mr. Epstein. They are here today. None of them have had a chance to speak to anyone in the department or FBI, though they've asked repeatedly. So can I get your word under oath that within the next 30 days, you will personally sit down with these 10 victims and hear their case in terms of what needs to be done by the Department of Justice?
Chairman, I appreciate them being here today. I also have somebody from my office who's spent her entire career working on cases like Mr. Epstein's. She's in charge of our task force.
What does that
investigating
have to
human
do with the
trafficking.
question
She's
you were
available
asked?
to talk to them.
She can sit right next to you. She can sit right next to you when you meet with these survivors.
I have never said I will not meet with survivors.
Will you meet with these 10 survivors? I'm asking you on the record.
If they have lawyers, as you know, I'm prohibited from meeting directly with them. I have met with counsel for survivors, as has many people in the Department of Justice, over 30. But if they are represented by counsel, we will work with their counsel. If they don't have a lawyer, I will certainly make arrangements to make sure the right people at the Department of Justice meet with them. Absolutely.
Will you get it done within the next 30 days that each
I
of
will
these
get it done
survivors...
today, if that's necessary. I mean, my point is there's somebody here who can meet with them today, get their information, and arrange to meet with them.
I think you ought to be in the room.
Pardon me?
I think you ought to be in the room because you ought to hear this. You had singular responsibility for these files. There was a delay in meeting the statutory requirement of disclosure. You were involved in that. I think you ought to be part of this.
I am definitely part of it, and I have been from day one.
And it will be done within the next 30 days?
I can keep on repeating myself, but I said it could get done as soon as today. It could have gotten done last week. We remain available to meet with any victim or their representative at any time.
Will you notify the committee when you've done this?
That would be prohibited by law if they're talking about an ongoing investigation.
I'm asking you if you'll notify the committee that you met with the survivors.
It depends on what they said. I'm not sure I'm allowed to notify you if there's an ongoing investigation.
Well, you're dancing on the head of a pin here.
I'm not dancing on it.
You absolutely are dancing on the head of a
Have the
pin.
courage to come before this committee, have the courage to tell their terrible stories, how they were exploited. Don't you think it's important that we have a prompt response by our government to these survivors?
Absolutely. And there will be a prompt response. My heart breaks.
There
for
isn't a
every
prompt
survivor,
response.
every
You guys
victim
haven't
of
been
this
prompt
Epstein.
about
Absolutely.
anything.
And I would love to prosecute anybody that did any harm to these
Will you
victims.
meet
So
with them within
absolutely.
the next 30 days? The last time I asked a question, you can say yes
I
or
can
no.
keep on answering it the same way. I can meet with them. My staff will meet with them. We have a staff member here
If you
today
can
who
meet with them, will you meet
specializes-
with them?
I'm not sure what you're looking for me to say.
Yes or no?
If they're represented by counsel.
That's
I'm
what
not
we're...
allowed to meet with them directly, as you know. I assure you, the FBI, who are experts in this space, prosecutors who are experts in this space, and me, if necessary, will absolutely meet with them. I promise you this.
I think it's
I will stay
necessary.
updated and know everything that's happening with any victim that has information about any other people that work with Epstein.
I know,
that
Bertie.
committed any crimes with Epstein. Absolutely.
Well, if you're truly committed to extraordinary transparency and you're willing to meet with these victims, I hope you will do it immediately or we're going to hold
Bad.
you to it. I wanna
That was
ask
the
you about
dumbest statement
immunity
I've ever
provisions
seen
that
for
you
someone who
signed,
came in here.
relative to the responsibility and liability of the president and his family and their businesses when it comes to tax audits. Would you like to explain how we can give to the president and his family and businesses exemptions from complying with the tax laws of the United States?
It's not an exemption to comply with the tax laws of the United States. As part of the settlement, it was an agreement that any past audits would end.
The United States, your signature, the United States releases, waives, acquits, and forever discharges each of the plaintiffs when it comes to tax liability. That's how it reads. It's pretty sweeping. You don't believe that is a discharge forever from liability?
Of any past filings, yes.
All right, it is. How do you explain that to the American people, everyone in this room, all of us on this side? We have to follow the tax laws of the United States. And if we don't, we can be held responsible for it, to the point of even criminal prosecution. Why did you decide that President Trump and his family and their businesses should be exempt from that same responsibility?
As part of the settlement between the IRS and President Trump and some of his family, 2 of his sons and his organization, as is typical when there's a settlement between plaintiffs and the IRS, part of the settlement included release of any past audits. It does not give any protection to the president, his family, or his organizations for any taxes they file. If they filed it the day of that I signed that agreement, or the day after, they have no protection.
No matter what their liability, no matter what their violation of tax law, you signed a document that forever discharged them from any legal responsibility.
As part of the settlement that we entered into, any past audits were
How often do you think that's been done in the history of the United States?
involving the President of the United States. I'm not sure it's ever been done, but this type of settlement is done regularly.
So you're saying that when it comes to the President of the United States,
Oh,
his
there
family and
SNL is going to
businesses
go
have no responsibility under the tax laws for any
crazy.
wrongdoing prior to the signing of this document?
No, I mean, I didn't say that at all. What I'm saying is that I think President Trump and his family are the first president that had their tax returns illegally taken, and made available to the public. So that is unique to President Trump, yes. But this type of settlement is not unique to the Department of Justice or the IRS.
It's hard to explain to the American people that no one is above the law
Hey,
when
OC.
that type of document was signed by you, forever discharging that family and that president from any liability for violating the tax laws.
Nobody is above the law. And when we enter into settlements like that, we do it with all kinds
Bullshit.
of people. It's not just President Trump. It doesn't
Bullshit
make
that
any of
nobody's
those
above the
individuals
law.
So let me
You've
ask
made
you,
your
since,
entire career about
completely
making sure
should be
that
above the law,
Donald
about
J.
the
Trump
January
is
6th
above the
rioters
law.
pardoned. We've taken a look at some of the people that the president pardoned on his first day in office, the ones who attacked this Capitol. And I'll use the word attack because I was here and I saw what happened. Anyone looking at the videos knows what happened on that day. Among those who were pardoned by the president are individuals who've gone on to commit serious crimes against innocent victims across the United States. Do you think that blanket pardon by the president of January 6 rioters was the right thing to do?
I think that the Constitution gives the president the full power to pardon anybody for any reason he wants. And so I don't question President Trump's authority or his decision to do so on January 20th.
You don't question his decision?
As I said, President Trump, under our Constitution, just like President Biden, has the authority to pardon anybody for any federal crime. And that's something that every president, that's a privilege every president's afforded, and including President Biden and President Trump.
See that,
I can tell you, he may have had the
and I'm
authority to
okay
do
with
it.
the question being
I think
asked because
someone
it
should
needed to be
grab him out
asked.
of
But let's be
the
fair.
arm and said,
If
"Stop."
he actually
You can't
answered it,
release all of those
the
rioters.
reality
Some
of
them
it,
actually physically assaulted policemen.
he
in the
would be
Capitol.
removed from
Some of them were
office
guilty of crimes,
by the
serious
president
crimes
of the
before that
United
day.
States.
And for the president
Oh,
to
it's a
give
privilege that
blanket pardon
absolutely
to
should be
these
revoked.
individuals is something that I don't think you can explain to the American people. You certainly can't explain it to the policemen who almost lost their lives because of these attackers. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Before I go to Senator Cornyn, I'd like to enter into the record for supporting Mr. Blanche's nomination from former Attorney General John Ashcroft, and this is a quote from the letter. "This rule of law is the best friend of liberty. To safeguard this core value, America needs an Attorney General exclusively devoted to the rule of law and will honor his oath to the Constitution. Todd Blanche is the right person for that responsibility. His record and credentials undergird my wholehearted support for his
Man can
nomination.
barely read
Without
words.
objection, that'll be entered into the record. Senator Cornyn."
Good morning, Mr. Blanche. Congratulations on your nomination. There's a lot to admire about your record of service to our country, and I respect the fact that you want to continue that service as the Attorney General. As I told you in my office, I think the Attorney General has the hardest job in Washington, D.C., because you are, at the same time, a member of the President's cabinet, subject to dismissal whenever the President wants for any reason or no reason at all. But then you also have a duty as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States. And I think it's
He's 84.
a very, very difficult balance. And I want to ask you a little bit about that, particularly in connection with the settlement of the tax case. There's so much that's unusual about this. First of all, the fact that the tax returns were leaked by a IRS contractor, Charles Littlejohn, who was appropriately convicted of a crime for doing that. President Trump and his family were definitely victims of a crime there. But it happened back in 2020, and the lawsuit wasn't brought until 2026. So with the 2-year statute of limitations, it seems to me that that was something I know that was the subject of pleading in the complaint and attempt to avoid the 2-year statute of limitations, but that struck me as unusual. But let's talk a little bit about the settlement agreement and the release. First of all, I believe you have said that the weaponization fund is a moot issue. Is that your position?
Yes, it is a moot issue, meaning there is no weaponization fund. The weaponization fund is dead. It's not moving forward.
Well, I would refer you to the settlement agreement. Do you happen to have a copy of that in front of you?
I do not.
Okay,
Senator.
well, you probably know what's in it.
I'm familiar with it, yes.
I'm sure you are. On page 4, this settlement agreement may be modified only upon the written agreement of the parties. Has there been a written agreement of the parties to modify the settlement fund?
No, the settlement fund's just not moving forward. There's no modification. It's just, it never started. No money went from the Treasury to any other account. There's no commissioners. It's not moving forward.
Well, so the settlement agreement remains as it was originally, but I hear what you're saying. Is the settlement agreement enforceable as a contract by the parties?
Well, yes, it's an enforceable document. So I suppose if President Trump's counsel sought to enforce it, that they potentially could.
Including the weaponization fund?
Well, they could try to enforce the contract. They can't force the Department of Justice to move forward with the weaponization fund. They could potentially say that, I suppose, that we breached by not moving forward. They haven't done that, and I'm not aware that they're planning on doing that. Like I said, Senator, and Senator Durbin talked about this, but I've talked extensively with you and other colleagues about potentially codifying so there's no weaponization fund, which is certainly something that could be done. And I wasn't meaning to insult this body, but just that in response to questions from senators about whether that could be done, we very much are okay with that.
But just to be clear, the President of the United States, who is the plaintiff in this lawsuit, has not agreed in writing to delete the weaponization fund, and there's no guarantee that he or one of the other plaintiffs might raise that issue by way of a lawsuit, and a breach of contract lawsuit in the future.
Well, Senator, the plaintiffs have no power over the fund. The fund was administered solely by the by the 5 commissioners and through the Department of Justice. So no, they don't have any power with respect to the fund at all. I suppose they could bring a lawsuit.
The plaintiff
and then
is
we
the
would litigate
president
it,
of the
but even if
United
we were litigating
States.
it, there's no fund. So the results of such litigation, whatever it would be, wouldn't be a revival of the fund.
I want to ask you about the release, and I know I'm guilty of what a lot of lawyers are guilty of in having a chart you can't read, but I know you're familiar with this document, which is the release that you signed on May the 19th, 2026. First of all, does this purport to release parties or people who were not parties to the lawsuit?
No, Senator.
Well, it says here that claims asserted by defendants or any of the plaintiffs or related or affiliated individuals, including without limitation family or others filing jointly or parties, including trusts, parent, sister, or related companies, affiliates, or subsidiaries, they weren't a party to the lawsuit, were they?
I didn't hear everything you just said, Senator, but the only parties that were
I heard it. How did he
had
not?
any, release as respect to any potential audits, even if they existed, were the plaintiffs in the lawsuit.
Did you talk to the president about the settlement? He originally sued for $10 billion and settled for an apology and this weaponization fund and
Morning.
the release of future liability for tax audits. Did you discuss it with him?
No, I did not. He had outside counsel. I did not discuss it with his outside counsel either. It was done by other people in the office.
And this was a lawsuit brought.
Can I qualify that?
Sure.
After when we determined not to move forward, as the president has said, that's the only time that he and I had any conversations about this at all, was after, when it was dead, when we said we're not moving forward.
And this lawsuit was brought against the IRS and Treasury, yet this release purports to apply to defendants or other agencies or departments. So does this release apply to, let's say, a investigation by the Security and Exchange Commission or some other federal agency?
No, that's the standard language that we use when we enter into
Yeah, Scott, it's
settlements
not
between
gone.
plaintiffs and the
It's not
IRS,
officially
but
done.
No, it doesn't.
They're just not
bind,
moving forward for now.
It's issued by me because statutes require and authorize me to do that, as opposed to other cabinet members. And in this case, it binds only the IRS and, by extension, the Treasury.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but I certainly don't read that in the agreement. But let me turn, since I only have a few minutes left. Senator Grassley raised the issue of the mifepristone lawsuit, and just to be clear, you understand the difference between the morning after pill and mifepristone, don't you?
Yes.
And so mifepristone is a chemical abortion that can be administered up to 10 weeks of gestation. The length of gestation should be, according to the medical literature, confirmed by ultrasound or clinical assessment by a healthcare provider. And it's generally safe and effective according to the literature, when used under medical guidance. But the problem is that President Biden's administration changed the Trump policy and allowed the administration of this chemical abortion drug, without any medical guidance whatsoever. And as you know, I've written a letter. Senator Tillis and I sent a letter yesterday. And what I would appreciate, I understand you can't necessarily talk too much about your litigation strategy in the case of Louisiana against FDA, but I would appreciate it if you would respond to this letter for the record about the intentions of the administration. If President Trump is the most pro-life president, this ought to be a pretty easy call because women are hurt as a result of side effects, heavy bleeding, prolonged potentially infection or sepsis, incomplete abortion, other complications when this is being sold through the mail or through online prescription. Will you
Old
do that
men
for me?
need to
Yes,
stop
Senator, I will.
talking about this shit.
finally, let me just go back to the, in the 50 seconds I have, go back to this release. This purports to release lawfare or weaponization and/or weaponization. Those aren't legal terms of art, are they?
I think they are just legal terms of art. They're not, there's not
Have
any,
they been defined in any case or any statute?
not that I'm aware of, no.
So they're not a legal term of art.
Well, I think that the terms have been used by the legal
Seriously,
community
Shel.
and by people within government, but no, I'm not sure that they're in Black's Law Dictionary.
So
for
we don't know
example.
what that covers.
Well, I think
Birdie,
it depends
I
on the
hear you.
circumstances of the facts presented as to whether it covers. As to
So,
what it covers, sorry.
thank you, my time's up.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Blanche, after both the assassination of Melissa Hortman, our former Speaker of the House, and after the Annunciation school shooting in which 20 people were gunned down through stained glass windows, federal law enforcement, as you and I discussed in my office a few weeks ago, worked cooperatively with state and local. And we also know that they've worked together on the important work going on in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota with regard to fraud and the ongoing fraud investigation. And I know we have your commitment to continue giving resources for that investigation. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Thank you. So we also discussed my concern about the lack of cooperation we saw after the horrific killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, with the federal government refusing to cooperate with state
Shadow.
law enforcement for months, blocking Minnesota investigators from accessing the scene of Alex's death, even though they had a judicial warrant. They also failed to secure, according to news reports, failed to secure and process the scene, failed to process Renee Good's car for evidence. When we met a few weeks ago at length, I asked you to ensure full cooperation, and I appreciated that the department shared evidence with state investigators early this week. Will you commit to continued information sharing between federal and state investigators in these cases, as well as with regard to the recent shootings in Texas and Maine?
I expect that these investigations should be run as every investigation of similar kinds. And so that necessarily includes working with state and locals in the appropriate way. I think that the definition of full cooperation can be disputed, but I very much expect that whether it's the Inspector General or the U.S. Attorney's Office or the FBI or who's ever on the federal side of the investigation, where appropriate to work with state and locals. I think a lot of the news reporting that you referenced is actually not accurate with what has been happening since the unfortunate events several months ago.
Okay, but that aside, we've seen these recent shootings in Maine.
Correct.
And the
Unfortunately,
reactions of the community is understandably concerned, as well as Texas. I think that people are going to want accountability in these cases. And one of the things that doesn't get as much attention is the non-death cases. The Hmong elder pulled out of his house in Minnesota in his underwear and Crocs in 10 below zero weather. And as the nation's
Seems
chief
my
law
live is
enforcement
getting
official, do
restricted.
you agree that it is unacceptable for
I'm
federal
gonna
agents to
restart the
forcibly
live
enter
over on
someone's
TikTok.
home without a warrant and drag them onto the street without
Be right
even
back, guys.
checking that they have the right person?
Well, it depends on the circumstances, as you know. I mean, yes, obviously, law enforcement agents need a warrant to enter a house, except for limited exceptions to that. So yes, we very much believe in the constitutional protections afforded American citizens. The same protections are not afforded people who are here illegally. So it's not a black and white answer where I can say yes or no. But yes, I very much expect the law to be followed by our law enforcement agents.
So since the Civil War, along those lines, federal law has made it clear that the president does not have the authority to deploy armed federal officials to election sites. Will you commit to following clear federal law and not deploying federal agents to polling locations?
I will commit to following the law, Senator, of course.
Okay,
Yes.
but does that include not deploying federal agents to polling places?
I will absolutely follow the law no matter what it includes. So yes.
Do you understand why voters, U.S. citizens, are concerned about armed agents at polling places?
I'm not aware of armed agents being at polling places.
Thank
so
you.
I'm not
Shadow,
aware of
they
that
always
concern,
don't
but I
like
will
it
tell you we will follow
when
the law,
people
Senator.
All
do
right.
watch
The DOJ has
parties
carried out
on
a
this app.
campaign to push states to turn over voters' sensitive and private data to the administration. 30 states, including Republican-led states like Georgia and West Virginia, have refused. In doing so, the West Virginian Republican Secretary of State said, quote, "I will not break the law, give up our states' rights, or compromise the privacy of our citizens." 15 federal courts in decisions from Democratic and Republican appointed judges have all found that these actions to force the states to turn over this data is unlawful. Could you discuss how cutting off anti-terrorism funding to states that refuse something that 15 federal courts have
No,
found to be
it's
illegal
not that. This
enhances our
happens
national
all the
security?
time. I could be talking
So those cases are still
nonstop,
being
Scott, and
litigated,
it'll
so
do it.
I can't
It's
talk specifically about the
people
the
also don't
cases that
like
you
it when I
mentioned,
talk
but
more because then we don't
overall,
hear what
I
they're
will say,
saying.
Senator, is that election integrity
But
is
yeah, I can talk a
extraordinarily
little
important to
more and
this
see.
administration. It's important to this body. And so to the extent that the work that we're doing is to make sure that we have fair and honest elections, that the only people voting are the people who are eligible to vote, and that they're only voting once, that's important.
If secure elections important, how does stopping the long-standing practice of critical information sharing and scenario planning between the DOJ, other federal agencies, and state and local election officials promote election security?
We're not doing
because we have heard from our own Secretary of State that Steve Simon that these standard briefings trainings have not happened.
We're not doing that. So I'm not sure what you're
Senator,
referring
okay,
to, but I'm happy to follow up with your
you.
office about that.
Appreciate that. So you and I talked about some of the antitrust concerns I have, the independence of the department. I was very concerned by the department's weak settlement of the monopolization suit against Live Nation Ticketmaster. Do you believe that this settlement was good for consumers? And if so, then why didn't, there was another case, of course, that the state attorney general's brought that is going to result in much better protections for consumers. Why didn't the DOJ join them, stay in that suit?
I share your concerns, and yes, I do believe that settlement was good for consumers. The American people got a lot out of that settlement with Live Nation, and you talk about another case that's separate. That's ongoing litigation that could potentially take years to resolve. And so, when we make a decision as a department to settle a case, we are only thinking about the American consumer and making sure that we're complying not only with the laws but with what's right for.
Did the White House have any involvement in that decision?
In the decision regarding which case?
To settle the Ticketmaster case.
We work at times closely with White House counsel on certain issues. I am sure that I wasn't directly part of discussions, but so I can't speak to that, but I'm most certainly not saying they were not part of it.
So, okay. Are you concerned that former Republican Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General Roger Alford, who has appeared before this committee as a Republican witness in the past, has said that in your department, antitrust cases are being resolved based on political connections?
Todd Blanche is not a
legal
good guy.
merits?
No, his words don't concern me because they're
Not in my
true.
opinion.
Well, a lot of us disagree on that front. So I want to turn to some sort of number of issues involving security. So in the wake of the shooting last year, Annunciation Catholic School was approved to receive funding through the
didn't
Office
say it
for
was a
Victims of
question.
Crime
I'm
for mental
still
health
allowed to
and other support
respond.
services. And I appreciate that the department has worked closely with the Annunciation community on this issue.
You think
but the delays
only
in the
you
release of
get to
these
say
funds are creating
things? I
budget
get to respond to whatever
concerns.
hell I want.
Could you commit to work with me on getting those funds to the school?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
No.
The
I will not
president's
just
most
let
recent
people
budget
listen. This is
reduces
my
COPS
live.
office funding by nearly
What makes you
$500
think
million,
that you can tell me
eliminates the
what I
Stop
can and
School
can't do on
Violence
my
program
live?
that I championed with Senator Hatch? He was the lead on it. Are you concerned that cutting this funding will impact school safety?
No, I understand the question. I fully expect that the grants that ultimately are included in the budget that's passed will make sure that we're providing appropriate funds to our communities so that they can continue their good work.
We're watching it, but I still get to talk about it however and whenever I want.
Several law enforcement and domestic violence groups.
You're being the
about
5-year-old
DOJ plan to
whining
consolidate
because I
COPS
responded to you.
program, HIDA
It's not a
program,
question.
Office on Violence Against Women.
It's a statement.
And why do you think this will be helpful? Because we
You're being
believe
just
that
as
they
much-
have very different functions.
I
You've
agree
made
with
your
you. That's
point.
not what we're doing. There will still be 3 separate
Okay.
functions. What we're doing is consolidating above them to one group so that the application process is smoother and easier for grantees to do their work, and also so that internally some of the bureaucracy that was involved in having 3 separate bureaucratic streams doing the same work, even though you're right, the underlying programs serve different functions.
I agree,
was
Dancing
not
Queen.
efficient, so we're making that efficient.
And I'll follow up with you with some of the domestic violence grants.
Christopher, you don't
and
even know
also
what
just
that
wanna
word
mention
means.
The continued enforcement under the Take It Down Act.
If you
that Senator
did,
Cruz and
you
I
wouldn't
passed, and how
say
important
that
is
dumb
going
thing.
forward.
Thank you, Senator. Yes.
Before I go to Senator Kennedy, I'd like to read a letter supporting the nominee from the National Association of Police Organizations. More than 1,000 police organizations and 250,000 law enforcement officers nationwide are represented by this letter. Quote, Mr. Blanche has proven his commitment to the rule of law and a fair and impartial justice system. As Deputy Attorney General and later Acting Attorney General, he has built a strong partisanship with law enforcement enforcement community, from supporting the Department of Justice law enforcement assistance grant programs to working to ensure accountability within the Public Safety Officers Benefits Program. He is consistently endeavored to meet the needs of state and local law enforcement officers and their families, end of quote. Without objection, will be entered in. Senator Kennedy.
General, I assume that you consider yourself to be qualified to be the permanent Attorney General. Is that right?
Yes, Senator.
I've read your resume. We all have. You don't need to comment on this, but it just seems to me that no fair-minded person could conclude that you're not qualified. You spent a long time with the department. You spent a long time in private practice. So the opposition of my Democratic friends must be based on something else. Are you and President Trump friends?
I'm his lawyer, was his lawyer, and now I'm the Deputy Attorney General. So I met him as his criminal defense attorney. I'm not sure there's very many people who have ever had a criminal defense attorney who calls that person their friend. I now have a...
Well, let me put it this way. Are you enemies?
No, we're not enemies at all, no.
Have you ever seen a president of the United States appoint an enemy to be Attorney General?
I have not.
Usually they appoint their qualified friends, don't they?
No.
Yes,
I mean, one president appointed his brother, right?
he did, Senator.
And I can think of another president who appointed his former law partner. Is that right?
It is correct.
Okay.
So let's just keep doing whatever
Are you
we were doing
responsible
before.
for all
We
the
don't need to. We don't need to
president's
change
decisions?
anything.
No, Senator, I'm not.
I mean, does the president get up in the morning and give you a call first thing and say, Todd, tell me what I ought to do today?
He does not.
Does he ever ask your opinion on actions he should take?
Yes,
Do you tell him the truth?
every time.
Have you ever disagreed with him?
Yes,
And have you ever disagreed with him
Hey,
and
Vernon.
he did it anyway?
yes,
And did you go call a press conference and announce that the president made a bad decision?
absolutely not.
That's not what attorneys general do,
Correct.
okay? Has he ever asked you to do anything illegal?
No,
Would you do it if he asked you?
absolutely not.
Okay. How many pages of the so-called Epstein files has the department released?
Nearly 3 million.
How many more pages are there?
That are responsive, we're not aware of any.
How about that in the department's opinion are not responsive?
Well, from what we collected, about 3 million that were just nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein or the case at all.
Okay. Why don't you just release everything? Just let it rip.
Well, that would be against the law, because the only reason we could release the 3 million we did is because of the Epstein Transparency Act. There are federal laws that prohibit the release of case files, and the Epstein Transparency Act was very explicit and specific about what could be and should be released.
Other than to himself. Well, first, we can agree, can we not, that Mr. Epstein was a pig?
Yes.
Other than to himself, who, if anyone else, did Mr. Epstein traffic young women to?
There's from what we learned, from what we know. So when we know, I mean, what's in the FBI files and what's in the DOJ files, we did not identify evidence. And by we, I mean career prosecutors, not me, not my leadership, but career prosecutors in New York and career prosecutors in Florida who worked this case hard, did identify other participants, some of whom, as has been discussed, were also victims themselves of Mr. Epstein. But we did not have evidence, as of now, of other men who were that were trafficked, that Epstein helped traffic. That does not mean it didn't happen, and I want to be clear about that. It just means that we have evidence that the FBI gathered and that the Department of Justice gathered, and that's the body of work that we have to work with, which is why I said earlier, if there's anybody out there, victim or otherwise, that has information, I beg them to come forward.
Just
Okay. Did Jack Smith read my emails?
I'm not sure, Senator. I don't know.
Would you check for me?
We will check, Senator, yes.
I think he read Senator Grassley's emails. How did he, how can someone at the Department of Justice get Senator Grassley's emails without probable cause?
There are checks in place that should make it extraordinarily difficult for a prosecutor to collect and review a senator's emails or a congressman's emails or a lawyer's emails or other folks that have
it shouldn't be
privilege
difficult
protections
for
associated with their communications.
any
And those checks and
senator
balances should
or
always be used.
congressman.
But Mr. Smith just ignored them?
I cannot speak for Mr. Smith, Senator.
All senators and congressmen's emails should be
Would you check
public.
for me first if he read my emails? And
We will check.
Number two, how he got them. And number three, I don't mean to single out my friend Senator Grassley, but what emails did he get of Senator Grassley? And I mean, what were they limited to, if at all? You know, did he get emails of Senator Grassley talking about his corn
Unfortunately,
and-
sweet
and all
numbers,
that.
all the
And who did he
committees
share
kind of
with?
are.
Do you know if Mr. Smith shared my emails with Attorney General Garland?
I do not know.
Can you check for me?
We are investigating that, Senator, yes.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to know all that. Now, Mayor Lori Lightfoot sent she sent the world a letter.
It really is, Bertie.
Suggesting that we should not confirm you as
It really
Attorney
is.
General. Who
It is Heidi.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot, just for the record?
So she's the former mayor of Chicago. I believe she had a brief stint in the Department of Justice prior to her political life.
Right. And you had some conflicts with her.
I do not believe she supports our administrators' efforts making America safe again.
Okay, right.
Except
She
you
thinks
aren't making
cops are
America
a
safe.
bigger
You're making it more dangerous.
problem than criminals. Would that be a fair assessment?
She definitely, her public rhetoric is not something that either myself or this administration supports, which is to always back our law enforcement.
She
Kennedy
thinks
is not
if a
great.
cop shoots a criminal, it's automatically the cop's fault. But if a criminal shoots a cop, it's automatically the gun's fault. Would that be a fair assessment of the mayor's position?
Her public statements suggest that.
Yeah. Would you put her even in charge of a ham sandwich?
They
I
get
don't believe
10
she should
minutes
be,
each.
any part of this administration.
Well, the people in Chicago apparently agreed. I think she ran for re-election and got 16% of the vote. Is that right? Do you recall?
I'm not sure what percentage she got, Senator.
Okay. Tell me a little bit. One of the things that under your authority, the department has concentrated on, which I agree with, in addition to prosecuting crime, is the prosecution of white-collar crime. Fraud.
What's the purpose of his rambling?
Tell me a little bit.
Kennedy is trying to make it seem
It's
like he's
incredible since COVID.
thinking
The,
about what
absolute
he's questioning.
thievery that's
He's
happened
really
from
trying
the
to
FISC,
get
by
down to the
people in this
meat of who
country.
he
And
is.
So we have focused tremendous.
This is literally
amount of
what
efforts, not
Kennedy
only in the new
does.
division,
It's
but in every US
performative
attorney's
to the-
office, with
to
every
the
inspector
extreme.
general, and their offices, the FBI, DHS, and HSI, to just root out this fraud. You have examples of rampant of individuals just stealing.
You're
So setting up
underthinking
entire,
it, dear.
Centers for autism when there are no patients, when there is no center, and taking millions
You
of
obviously
dollars of
don't have an
hard-earned
idea of
taxpayers'
what they
money.
do in
And so
Congress.
we are very focused on that. We've already, like I said earlier, billions and billions we've already collected in just the past couple of months. That effort is going to go forward for as long as I am in the position that I'm in now, no matter whether I'm confirmed or not. And it's extraordinarily important to every American that this doesn't happen, because we're not talking about whether someone agrees or disagrees with a policy. It's just outright theft by individuals, and unfortunately, many state governments, if they didn't absolutely know what was happening and just
You
encourage
obviously
it, they certainly
don't
stood idly by
know how to
while
read
it was
people,
happening,
Roll
which is
Tide
also a
Girl,
problem.
because I'm not triggered.
Don't forget to check
I'm
on
not
my emails
upset.
for me.
I could give a rat's
Thank you.
ass what you think.
Senator Whitehouse.
I think it's hilarious that you keep coming back and saying the dumbest things that you could possibly say.
What became
But I
of the
appreciate you helping my
$50,000
algorithm.
in confidential money that the FBI reported that it gave to Tom Homan.
I'm not aware of what you're speaking about. To the extent that there have been public reporting about an investigation, I know nothing about it.
Well, the public reporting is that the FBI
Try to
reported
act
giving
like you're having
$50,000 in
fun.
the nature of a bribe to Tom Homan, and there's been no
What's
report
fun
what
about
became of that
a person who
$50,000. Will
is
you
a
answer that
horrible
question?
person becoming potentially
Now,
the Attorney
will you
General of
answer
the
that
United
question? You've
States?
been asking for a long time now. Your
What's
department
fun
certainly
about
knows
that?
what's happening.
I'm not aware that that's true.
There's nothing fun about this.
Take a look at it, and it's publicly reported, and the FBI reported it, and you should answer the question. That's not the only one. Here's a
I agree.
list
Todd Blanche needs to
of
be disbarred.
unanswered questions that I have just asked. I don't know how it is that the chairman thinks that you've cooperated with the committee or that you've been transparent with the committee. That is not my experience. You said earlier that you welcome our questions. Great. Answer our questions. That's the real point. Where we've failed to get answers to our oversight questions, we've actually had to revert to the Freedom of Information Act, the general law of government transparency, to try to get answers from the Department of Justice. Here's how we did. Not well.
It'll just be a continuation of the same disaster
have
as he's been
this
acting
stack
AG right now. So yeah.
Of questions that you haven't answered in the nature of oversight. We have this stack of FOIA requests that you haven't answered. And I think it's important for us to believe that you actually take seriously your constitutional oversight
He said some
responsibilities
of the
in
people
order
involved
to
in
confirm
Epstein
you, that
stuff
you actually
are
take
also
seriously your
victims.
obligations
He did
to
say
this
that.
committee, irrespective of party, majority or minority, in order to confirm you. So I will ask before we get to a vote on this that you take a look at these and get us answers. Where we have had answers, Mr. Blanche, they have not been informative. They have been blow-offs. So let's move on to Trump versus IRS. Our research indicates that senior DOJ officials have never,
If he
in the
gets
history of the
disbarred,
department
no, he is
before,
not eligible to be the
faced
AG if
a
he gets
judicial
disbarred.
inquiry into a fraud on the court participated in by the Department of Justice. That was the inquiry opened in Florida. The question about fraud on the court committed by the Department of Justice remains open.
I still think
in
it's
the
hilarious
judge's
that they use
decision.
like
Here's
poster board for this
what
stuff.
she did find.
It's
She found
2026
that the Department of
and
Justice
we're using poster
colluded
board.
with the Trump plaintiffs, that the Department of Justice violated DOJ policies in that collusion, that Department
It
attorneys
is
were
weird that people
derelict
keep coming on to
in
hate
their
watch my content. Yep.
responsibilities as DOJ
But-
attorneys, that the department
Hey,
failed
it helps
to
my
zealously
algorithm.
advocate on behalf of the United States of America, its true client.
They need an
And
AV guy. They
As I
do.
said, the fraud on the court question remains open, an unprecedented allegation about the department. As a result of that,
Let's take
the order was transmitted to the New York
let's take
State
some of that
Bar.
money that we're using to
potential
bomb
disciplinary
Iran and put it
proceedings.
into AV
I
equipment
would
in,
like to
in
ask,
Congress.
in addition, since this is new news, the decision was, what, 2 days ago? I would like to ask that you say to us that you will be willing to provide all of the documents and communications between the Department of Justice
Thank you, Nolan
and
Lloyd.
the Trump plaintiffs in that matter.
Audio, video, Frodo.
I'm not aware of any communications. I didn't have any. So if you put a request in, we'll look at it. I mean, obviously that's active, continued litigation in the Southern District of Florida. So it depends on.
Explain how it is active, continued litigation in the District of Florida.
Well, there's been several indications that the parties of, I never entered notice of appearance, but that the parties intend to appeal the judge's Monday 56-page decision.
Well, it'll be interesting. Do you intend to appeal the Department of Justice?
We weren't really even part of that decision. So to the extent there's something that we can appeal, I very vigorously will encourage the department to do so.
The Chinese
here's
government
the
puts on
tell.
some awesome presentations.
case,
It's true.
The Department of Justice filed no answer, filed no agreement with respect to the extension of time.
What's up, Mission?
Filed
Thank you
no
for being a
response
7-month
to the
member
case
over on
of
the tube. I
controversy.
appreciate you.
Amici filed nothing related to the withdrawal of the complaint, filed no settlement, and filed no response to the fraud on the court inquiry. To me, as a one-time litigator, that looks like really weird behavior. And when
The
for the
posters are
first
giving
time in
rock and
history
roll
there's
concert in
inquiry into fraud upon the court
2006.
committed by the Department of Justice, the silence from the department in response to that is deafening, Mr. Blanche, deafening. And it strikes me
I
that
agree.
the
It's insane that he
stratagem
is being
here
considered.
was to file no
But I said that about a
pleadings
lot of the people that they've
to
put
try to
in.
keep the department
in,
out
so
of the authority of the court, when what the department knew to be a collusive and false enterprise was blown up in that court. Now, it didn't work because the court found collusion, and it takes two to collude. And they also went on and made the other adverse findings about the department's conduct.
I wonder how
And the
much
problem
Congress
here, Mr. Blanche,
spends
is that
on
it's
poster
not
board
just that one
in
occasion
a year.
between judges appointed
You
by
know,
every president harshly criticizing the
Tanisha,
department's work in your tenure.
I would love to say no,
grand
but
juries
I'm
rejecting
not
indictments,
confident that
judicial
the answer is
findings
no.
of outright misconduct.
Being
capable
down two
lawyers
senators
fleeing the
helps
sinking ship.
increase the possibility, though.
This seems to be the most troubled Department of Justice in history. Here are some of the misconduct findings against your U.S. attorneys. And if I haven't put it up yet, here's a word cloud of the commentary by federal judges about the conduct of your DOJ. These are red flag words that when I was a U.S. attorney would have provoked, at minimum, an internal conversation about what the hell went wrong, and very likely a conversation with OPR and maybe OPR pursuit. Words like pretext mean a lot coming from a judge about a government argument, usually enjoying the presumption of regularity. We need answers.
Hey, Mama
I
Bear.
need you to be able to tell me.
Guys, thanks for all the
that this
follows,
kind
the
of misconduct
shares,
is
the
gonna
gifts.
stop
I appreciate
if
you
you're
making it
confirmed as
possible to me
Attorney
keep
General.
doing. If you don't
Can
mind,
you
keep
say
tapping that nose while you're
The
listening.
Department of Justice works hard.
Share it out with your friends,
Prosecutors
join
work
the
hard every
team.
day, and I appreciate the hand-picked words.
Also know
that
I'm
you have
live over on the
behind you right
tube.
now, but that's not reflective.
You want to
of
hang
the
out over there?
100,000 indictments and informations that have been filed to do the work that I talked about earlier today. And so while cherry picking a few isolated words from district court or magistrate judges in certain districts is something that you're entitled to do, it's absolutely false to suggest that this Department of Justice is not executing as we should in doing the right thing every single day.
I will tell you that you are wrong. That in the history of the department, this kind of criticism by federal judges is unprecedented, and it comes from judges of every different political persuasion. Let me ask about the FBI. How long do you intend to put up with that Kash Patel character? Are you good with his airplane jaunts? Are you confident he's not drinking on the job? Are you sure none of his travel is a pretext for vacation activities like snorkeling, Olympics, and visiting girlfriends? Are you sure he knows what he's doing? Do you vouch for him?
Oh my
Are you willing to look
gosh.
at whether he lied to this committee?
That's an extraordinarily obnoxious question, Senator.
Aw.
I have full faith in Director Patel and the work that he's doing every day.
Great, you get to own that.
the
One last thing, if I may. You have refused to exclude January 6 rioters from your anti-weaponization fund. You have refused to put in writing that the slush fund is dead. Indeed, you signaled to allies that payouts are still on track. You have vacated seditious conspiracy convictions against members of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. You hired January 6 rider Jared Wise, who had urged the mob to kill police officers. You scrubbed press releases about January 6 prosecutions and called the releases partisan propaganda. You denied that Trump encouraged any violence on January 6. You've cleaned house.
They
every
have a little
attorney
bit
who worked
mission.
on a
They
case
have discussed the
related to
blocking of
Trump,
the
and you've
e-file
bragged that bringing
investigation.
justice for violent rioters meant that every one of them was either pardoned or had their sentence commuted. I hope that our colleagues who are concerned about what happened on January 6th take that into account. Thank you.
Would you like to respond?
I would. Almost everything the senator just said, and he's protected, he's allowed to lie, but almost everything he just said was absolutely false, okay? Starting with the fact that I have never said that any sort of violence against law enforcement is appropriate. I have never said that publicly. I have never said that in a speech, and I certainly do not believe it. I did not hire the person referenced. And that is, again, something that just happens not to be true. When I talk about what happened with the convicted January 6 defendants, I talk about what President Trump did. He had the
You're his
absolute right
attorney
to
general.
pardon anybody for any reason he sees fit. And every one of them got pardoned or commuted. I am not celebrating that. It is a fact. And the fact that my department had to take action in response to those pardons by dismissing some cases is exactly what I have to do under the law, and it's what I did. So that the narrative that the senator just suggested and put on me as something I believe is absolutely not true.
Since he accused me of lying personally, Mr. Chairman, let me ask that I put this series of concerns into a question for the record, and that you, under oath, one by one, tell me where there's a lie.
I'm happy to do that.
We'll get that to you.
I'm happy to do that. Absolutely.
Before I go to Senator Blackburn,
Hey, Patty.
since oversight was brought up and responsiveness of your department, I'd like to speak about how it was with the Biden Justice Department's non-responsiveness to my oversight letters. If the Biden Justice Department would have been remotely responsive, there wouldn't be such a backlog right now. So let's not pretend for a minute the last administration was a benchmark of responsiveness, and this administration, to its credit, has been more responsive. I talked about, in my opening statement, 43,000 pages of documents that you have released compared to a lot less in the previous administration. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being with us today. Before I get to my questions, I would like to make you aware that when Ranking Member Durbin was chairman in the last Congress, I tried repeatedly to subpoena the Epstein files so that we could get those banking records and those flight logs, and repeatedly that was blocked. So the Democrats at that point didn't want to know what was in the Epstein files until they lost the majority, and then they were hell-bent to get that. I also want to make certain that we get on the
What does
record
it matter? They want it released.
That DOJ has met with the following list of attorneys who represent victims, including many who have claimed that they've never had a meeting with DOJ. Now, here is this list: Sigrid McCauley, Jordan Merson, Gloria Allred, Eric Fidai, Alan Goldfarb, Daniel Kaiser, Miriam Meyer Wang, Glenn Nick, Adam Horowitz, Jack Scarola, Dennis Artie, Kevin Menser, Jill Greenfield, Julie Keys, David H. Brody, Robert Glassman, Kate L. Doniger, Andrew Villacastin, Brittany Henderson, Brad Edwards, Avron Robin, Neil Binder, David Flessig, Roberta Kaplan, Tasha
No,
Thompson.
she's trying
For the
to
record.
argue that the DOJ has met with all of these
I do want to talk with you a little bit
victims.
about Memphis and the Memphis Safe Task Force. We are so grateful. When you talk about a success, the work that has been done in Memphis in fighting crime, this is going to be a big part of President Trump's legacy and his commitment to Memphis. The commitment that has been made by his administration is something that Memphians and all West Tennesseans are incredibly grateful for. And this is something with President Trump, with Kash Patel. We started saying, please help us, and that call was answered. I brought the crime stats. We get the daily report from Memphis. 11,040 arrests have been made. And yesterday, there were 40 arrests. These included someone charged with second-degree murder, another with first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, attempted rape, and aggravated assault. There have been nearly 2,000 firearms that have been seized, and there have been 155 children that have been recovered. The stats here tell the story. You, President Director Patel, and the agencies that are there, working with our governor, state agencies, the Memphis mayor, the Memphis police chiefs. This is the way to fight crime. And we are ever so grateful.
Let's never look at the
And we want
problems
to
and
be
what
able
got us to this
sustain
point.
and
Let's just
build
arrest
on that. And
everybody.
I'd like for you to talk just a moment about Memphis and what lies ahead for Memphis and more broadly for other countries, other cities and counties that are focused on public safety.
Thank you, Senator. What we have done, and by we, I don't mean the Department of Justice alone. I mean state and local partners, the National Guard, all of our federal agencies, DHS in Memphis should be a poster child for a lot of cities in this country. You have a city that had skyrocketing crime and restaurants that were out of business, storefronts that didn't exist, they were boarded up, and we came together. And you're right, it was President Trump working with you, working with the governor, working with our partners, and said, we're gonna fix this. We're gonna, just like we did in DC, we're gonna go into this city. And
I've been to
arrest,
DC.
amazingly,
They didn't
a very
fix
small
it.
percentage of
I've been to
Memphis's
DC.
population was
They
committing
did
a very
not
large percentage
fix
of the crimes.
it.
And so if you can focus on that small percentage, you're actually able to bring the crime stats down remarkably, which is exactly what we did. As far as what happens going forward, we keep on doing it. Memphis, there's restaurants opening in Memphis. There's stores opening in Memphis. It's a new city compared to where it was 1 year ago, and that's something that we can't let up on. But again, I look at it as a poster child of what we should do in cities across this country.
And we are pleased to know that you all are doing a model city program at DOJ in order to help with public safety in other areas.
Yes, and that's not just for Memphis, but for several cities around the country where we are going to put money where our mouth is and put a lot of resources into the cities to help make sure that cities that need to be safer are safer, and if they're on the right track, that they have the resources they need to keep doing it.
When you were in the office, we talked about my carjacking bill.
When you were in my office and we talked about what we were going to talk about in this hearing,
knowingly requirement, giving the prosecutors, federal
when President Trump told me what questions to ask and you told me how you were going to answer it so we could make sure we could get this right.
We thought it was going to move with the NDAA, and Leader Schumer has blocked that, and we're disappointed. It's a bipartisan bill. But talk about the importance of lowering that statute so that we can prosecute these crimes.
Yes, it needs to be done because carjacking not only in Tennessee but at every city in this country has gotten out of hand. The criminals are better at it than they have tools that make it easier to get into cars. They're willing to exact violence.
Nothing about the actual problems
that exist now under the statute, but also because of certain cases, make it higher than a regular.
I am not causing more chaos.
And law enforcement, and
not if it's happening. What if it's happening? What if I'm right, Roll Tide Girl, that this is what happened?
Cases, and if there's cases where somebody was
which I believe I am.
Prosecutors are not going to move forward. They'll do the right thing, but it shouldn't be the law that puts the damper on that. And so I'm hopeful that we can continue to work together on that, and that because it is very important.
That means she's not asking questions in good faith.
In the Trump versus Barbara case, that it's clear that Congress and the
when I believe for valid reason that the Republicans in this administration go over the questions they're going to ask,
is something that
then they're not asking questions in good faith.
We know that during the first Trump administration,
they're not actually trying to get someone who is best.
On this, I've had a ban birthright tourism bill that would block these 33,000 births a year from people who are circumventing our laws and coming here simply for the purpose of giving birth. It's primarily the Chinese, and it is also the Russian oligarchs that are exploiting this. And my bill would make coming here to give birth inadmissible as a way to obtain a
Roll Tide
visa
Girl, you don't think it
and
causes
deportable,
chaos for the Republicans to
immediately
support this
deportable,
administration no matter
as an
what?
offense.
And Republicans for no matter
touch
what they say
on
and do? You don't
why
think that
Congress
causes as
needs
much
to
chaos?
act and give the administration more tools to enforce this.
Yes. So the very day or the day after the decision came out, the Department of Justice issued a directive to prosecutors to focus on the conduct you're describing using existing laws and tools that we have, which is mostly around false statements or fraudulent information in the visa application process.
10 minutes.
We're
They
gonna
each
do
get 10
that.
minutes.
And that's pretty much, we are limited in how we can prosecute.
What good does pointing
folks that are
out
coming here
lies
for-
from a
lying
liar
about why they're
do?
coming here just to give birth, and also the organizations that are facilitating that. Any
How do we
congressional
move forward
statutory
if we don't
adjustment,
point out when
the
people are
Supreme Court
lying?
opinions relied in part on the statutory.
What
part of
good
this,
does
that would
ignoring
control,
lies
would give
do?
us more tools and would give the president more tools to keep out people who are absolutely not coming for the right reason, only coming to give birth.
And you're doing a great job on fraud and going after fraud that has been committed.
What about the
fraud task
president's
force
fraud?
Seems to be working
What
well.
about the president's
And
fraud?
From Tennesseans, I hear a good bit about this. They want the fraudulent activity to stop. It's taxpayer money.
No.
And they
Anything
want their
that's a
money to be
lie is a
used
lie.
wisely. We have had legislation that would apply to individuals that have come
Anything
into
that
the
is not
country
true
either
is by
illegally or maybe
its
they've
very
been
nature a
naturalized
lie.
citizens. But the Fraud Accountability Act would push for that deportation and denaturalization if they have been found to be defrauding individuals or local, state, or federal government. And I wish I'm over time, and I'll ask you for this in writing since I'm over my time, but I'd like to hear from you why it is important.
I do
to
not
put
say
more
everyone's a
tools
liar who
in
I
that
disagree with.
toolbox
I say
for you
everyone who
all
lies is
to
a
go
liar.
after these individuals that are defrauding the
don't-
U.S. taxpayer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Before I call on Senator Coons.
It's not my fault that everyone who's lying right now is
Very short. Thank
associated
you,
with
Mr.
the
Chairman.
Republican
Based on
Party.
the statements just made by the senator from Tennessee, we've checked the transcript of the committee. During the November 30th, 2023 Supreme Court Ethics Subpoena Authorization Markup, I chaired and attempted to recognize Senator Blackburn multiple times so that she could offer an amendment regarding
How can we be
Epstein's
unified
but
if
her
we
Republican
can't
colleagues prevented her from doing so
hold
by filibustering
accountable
and then invoking
liars?
The Senate rule on 2 hours to end the markup.
How is
The
it
Epstein records,
unifying
including flight
to
logs, have
sit
been
here
public
and
for
say,
years.
we
My
can
staff
just ignore
subsequently
people
reached out to Senator
lying?
Blackburn to work to identify
How is that
which records
unification?
she actually wanted and still believes had not been made public. To this day, she's never responded.
Mr. Chairman, since he mentioned my name, I have previously and will continue. There is video, there is a transcript, and Mr. Blanche, I'll be happy to forward that to you.
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member. Acting Attorney General Blanche, thank you for your service and for appearing here. And thank you to your family and to the men and women of the Department of Justice who work tirelessly to fight crime. and
Never
to
said
make our nation
everybody's
secure.
a
I'm grateful
liar.
for their service. I'm
But
sorry
all
that
the
your
lies I'm
schedule
pointing
apparently
out
didn't
have
permit us to
been
meet
from the
before this
Republican
confirmation
Party.
hearing, but I hope and
Again,
expect
it's
we'll
not
find time to meet
disagreeing
soon after
with.
today.
Absolutely.
You think that there's a
As I consider
it's
your
not a
nomination, like all
disagreement.
other nominations
It's a
to similar
fact.
cabinet positions, I need to know you're qualified.
If you
to
are
serve, as you
lying,
possibly are,
that's a
that
fact.
you have
That's
the
not a
policy views to serve
disagreement.
well. We will
What
discuss
part
that
can't you
today.
get?
And most importantly, in this role, that you have the independence to serve as the Attorney General for the American people. And that last question has troubled
No,
me
they've not
the
had their
most.
primary yet.
You're in charge of a Department of Justice I don't recognize prosecuting the president's political enemies, firing rank-and-file prosecutors and FBI agents because of the cases they were assigned to.
Truth
slashing
is
grants
not
for law enforcement
subjective.
and public
Facts
safety.
are
These
not
are some actions
subjective.
that in your
Facts
previous
are not
confirmation
subjective.
hearing before us,
Truth
you said
can
you
be
would not
subjective.
take. Now, I appreciate your
You
statement
call
walking back the $1.8
a lie,
billion
everybody else would call it a
weaponization fund,
disagreement.
that you created.
That's a
but
false
I question
statement,
how it
though.
got that far, and we'll
It's
get
not
into
a
that.
disagreement.
You sat in appropriations
The
hearing
things that
earlier
I
this
call
year
a
before me
lie
and
are
defended
not
it at that time.
disagreements. They are
In fact,
lies.
if I remember correctly,
They are
you told me I was wrong for
false.
criticizing it. But following questions by Senators Durbin and Cornyn, I'm concerned it's not dead yet, and I think we should talk that through.
You wanting to call it
Overall,
a
this is not
disagreement,
what I
others
believe
wanting
the
to call it a
American people
disagreement
expect or
means
deserve
nothing.
from the Department of Justice. Having spent critical parts of January 6th in this room, taking shelter from the mob, I just wanted to open with some questions. How many people were convicted of assaulting law enforcement officers on January 6th?
I believe around 120 approximately, but I could be off a few more.
You are. The answer is more than 200. And how many of those individuals had their sentences commuted or were pardoned by President Trump?
President Trump either commuted or pardoned every defendant from the January 6 events.
That's correct. And in this room right now and outside this room are Capitol Police officers protecting us in this hearing room. How many of them do you think might have friends or colleagues who were attacked by supporters of the president on January 6th?
I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure many of the Capitol Police officers who are here today were working on January 6th or knew people who were.
I'll just say that I consider it a shameful slap in the face of the men and women of law enforcement for those convicted of assaulting police officers to have been pardoned. I know you were not serving as Deputy Attorney General when President Trump pardoned those folks, but you said just a few moments
Actually,
ago that you were
she
not
is a
celebrating
liar.
this decision by the president. He
I
was
don't just
exercising his constitutional
disagree
power.
with what she said.
earlier this
That does
year, in
not
front of
mean that there
CPAC,
are
a
things that she
conservative
said
event,
that aren't true.
I would say
But
from
she
the transcript,
absolutely
you
is a
actually trumpeted
liar.
it as an achievement, and I quote,
Many
saying,
times.
if you look at what happened to the men and women convicted because of January 6th, by 5 p.m. on January 20th, every one of them was either pardoned or had their sentence commuted by President Trump. So when folks say you've done nothing, I say you have a very short memory. Would you say that you are proud of President Trump's decision to pardon individuals who assaulted law enforcement?
No, that's not what I was saying there at all, Senator. So I was responding to inquiries around why more hadn't been done by the Department of Justice with respect to January 6 defendants. And so my answer was that January 6 defendants and some of their lawyers had a short memory because a lot had already been done. Indeed, by the end of the day on January 20th, they had all been pardoned or commuted. So I wasn't celebrating it. I was merely stating a fact, which is that the
A
January
lie
6
by its very
defendants did
nature
receive
cannot be a truth to somebody
very
else.
generous pardon or commutation from President
That's
Trump.
that's
Every one of them
actually
on
not
January 20th.
generous,
possible.
in my view, for those who had assaulted police officers, unwarranted, unjustified, ahistorical, and a terrible precedent.
One's
Let me move on
truth
to questions
cannot
I've
be
asked in
another
previous
person's
hearings.
truth.
Is
But a
President Trump,
lie
just
by
as
its
a
very
simple matter of
nature
constitutional
cannot
law,
be
eligible to
someone
run
else's
for another
truth.
term as president in 2028?
I don't believe he is, no.
That is a correct, in my view, reading of the plain
Facts,
language of the
lies,
22nd Amendment.
Those are
Why
black
do you
and
think
white. They are
several of the
either
judicial
true
nominees
or
of this
they're
administration
either
have
true
refused
or they're not.
repeatedly to answer
They're
that
either
question
they either
simply and
lied
clearly as you just did
knowingly.
when
So
I
a
put it
lie
to you?
is knowingly
I have no
saying
idea why they answered
a
the question.
Me
falsehood.
neither.
I mean,
It was
you're asking me
confounding.
to speculate about something I don't know.
Is the Department of Justice that you are running independent from the White House?
The Department of Justice, like every single department in the executive, is part of the executive. I mean, Article 2 of the Constitution gives the power of the executive to President Trump. So we certainly operate with integrity. We certainly operate in the single mindset
Disagree.
to serve the American people and do the right thing.
Disagree.
But I am a member.
See, that's a
if
disagreement.
confirmed, I will be a member of
Because
the
what I have
cabinet.
seen
I'm
does not
serving in
show
an
that.
acting capacity that way now.
I
just like the
disagree
other
with that
cabinet
statement.
members, and
He may
President Trump
believe
can
it.
Fire me whenever he wants.
I
So
disagree.
Do you have a sense why he fired your predecessor?
I have no idea. I mean, President Trump, we all serve at the pleasure of President Trump in this administration. And,
Did President Trump ever post on Truth Social directing your predecessor to get at it, to prosecute his perceived political enemies?
I don't think those were his exact words. But
Those
he
were
did.
not his exact words,
No,
but
but
clearly that was the intention. It is my impression, sir, that you are here rather than your predecessor because the president was unhappy with her failures to actually secure convictions of folks like Attorney General Tish James or former FBI Director Jim Comey. If you're confirmed and you're asked to take an action you believe to be illegal or unethical, would you resign?
That will never happen, but yes, if it were to happen, I'm not going to violate my oath to the
That
Constitution.
will never. I
appreciate
hate
that
when
answer.
people say that will never
You did
happen. That's
answer
a
question by
dumb
colleague
statement.
about input that you gave to the president. Did you ever say no to the president on the slush fund, the anti-weaponization fund? Did you advise him against this?
Will not talk about communications I had with the president. I served as his lawyer for a couple years before he was elected. I'm the Deputy Attorney General and the Acting Attorney General, so I'm not going to talk about communications that I have with him. But Senator, I will say that President Trump trusts me to give him counsel. Counsel does not mean yes,
recognize
man, and so that's true in my case, like it should be in any Attorney General's
So
case.
let me just for a minute bear down on the anti-weaponization fund. You've testified to the House. We are not moving forward with that fund, period. But you've repeatedly refused to put that commitment in writing or to submit a declaration to the court. You're an officer of the court, a member of the bar. You should be able to make that assertion in a court filing or even in a letter submitted to this body. On May 19th, you testified before the Justice Appropriations Subcommittee. Since the case had been dismissed, there was no judge and no mechanism for judicial review. But in an opinion this week, a federal judge wrote, and I'm quoting, that your testimony was at best misleading and at worst disingenuous, explaining the court remained available to review this agreement had you sought relief. Why not seek review of the settlement agreement or submit some record, some writing, given that the president continues to publicly champion
Never thought we'd have a
this
president who's a
weaponization
convicted
fund,
felon.
and
Truth.
given your previous answer to me
True.
in another hearing, that you wouldn't say whether or not those who assaulted cops on January 6th would be eligible for multi-million-dollar payouts.
So there's a lot of questions there. First
Indeed.
of all, we have put it in writing. It's in repeated court filings in EDVA and DC. So this narrative that you won't put it in writing happens not to be true. The reason why neither myself nor Secretary Bessent agreed to put a declaration in is because there's long-standing precedent that judges cannot ask cabinet secretaries or people like me to put in declarations. It has nothing to do with whether the fund is alive.
The precedent is that a judge can't ask you to. That doesn't mean you can't do it.
I said it to the House Oversight Committee, and I'm happy to say it as many times as necessary. As far as what the judge said in Florida, just the last question you asked about Florida, that judge disagreed with what I said. I still believe that 11th Circuit precedent, which I've studied, I am right. So we'll see.
You did say earlier, this is the most transparent Department of Justice in American history. We have nothing to hide, and you started by saying we're here to rebuild trust. Two decisions or two OLC opinions I'm very interested in. I'm the senior Democrat on Defense and Intelligence Approach. I'm the most senior member of the Foreign Relations Committee on my side, who's currently serving on this committee. I'm curious as to why the most transparent department has refused to release the OLC opinion that justifies the 66 strikes the military has conducted on boats in the Caribbean, which have killed more than 220 people, either a redacted version or in a classified setting to me and others who are in relevant decision-making positions.
Well, Senator, we made the head of OLC available on multiple occasions to explain that to you and other members of the committee. And that is extraordinarily transparent and unprecedented that we've done that. Whether an OLC opinion is released, there's a lot of process that goes into that. But the idea that we were not transparent about our legal basis there is absolutely not true.
Okay. Another chance to be transparent. The FISA court in March certified your Section 702 proceedings.
You're
found
watching as well.
compliance deficiencies. This is an important power of the federal government that
How's it
will
doing,
soon
Captain?
be up again for a vote, and you have not declassified that opinion. Senators Cotton and Warner, Republican and Democrat leads on
Hey,
intelligence,
Lucas.
in April wrote the administration saying that they expected declassification of this March opinion within 2 weeks, yet it remains
He just posted his
classified.
Epstein
We have
BS
a
answer.
bipartisan
Yeah.
request from the leadership of Intel. Will you declassify it or make it available to us?
We'll continue to look at that. I agree with you that that's a very important issue, and we need 702 reauthorized.
Thank you. Last question, if I could. The Safer Supervision Act is co-sponsored by Senators Lee, Cornyn, Tillis, and Langford, and it gives a path forward to making sure that federal probation and parole is more effective. We've discussed it before. Will you meet with me to talk about ways that this important criminal justice reform, supported by federal law enforcement, could move forward?
I think that
Please
effort-
give a short answer to that.
I think it's, yes, absolutely. I very much agree with what you're trying to do there, Senator.
Thank you.
Before I call on Senator Schmidt, and after Schmidt gets done questioning, we're going to take a 15-minute break, and that 15-minute break starts when you leave the chair and be back in at the 15th minute. Before then, I'd like to enter into the record for your supporting your nomination from 382,000 members of the National Fraternal Order of Peace. The letter emphasized Mr. Blanche's distinguished record of public service and his commitment to work closely with law enforcement across the nation. The letter states, quote, "We believe Mr. Blanche's leadership
We're just
will
creating
help ensure
fraternal
that
orders
the Department
now.
of Justice remains focused on public safety, the rule of law, and providing unwavering support for the law enforcement professionals who risk their lives.
Is that like
daily
the
to
League of
protect
Justice?
our
Yes.
families," end of quote.
Yes, it is.
Without objection.
100% like that.
Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Blanche, welcome. You're entering this arena and this confirmation hearing as the nation's chief law enforcement officer at a very interesting time in our country's history, where the folks on the other side of the dais, the Democrats, in my view, have just taken an all-out assault on the men and women of this country who serve in a law enforcement capacity. We just, a couple of months ago, got through a government shutdown where I was on the Senate floor listening to things that I never heard, certainly an elected official say, in characterizing the men and women who serve this country to enforce its laws, calling them the Gestapo, President Trump's secret police.
Yeah, because they're acting like it.
Masked mercenaries.
I know, it's crazy.
This is insane.
It is.
These calls to defund ICE.
Yep.
This hammer and sickle wave that came through New York just a few weeks ago that's now dominating the discussion on the other side of the aisle. The central plank, of course, is defunding the police.
Now you're trying to pretend that communism is going in New York. Grow up.
This is not your grandfather's Democrat Party, and you're fielding questions.
Certainly not your
that I
grandfather's
think are
Republican
totally unfair.
Party.
But it's all meant, I think, to undermine and demoralize. I saw it in my time as Attorney General in Missouri, where we had a Soros-funded
See, that explains it.
who refused to prosecute crime.
That explains
And
so
police
much.
Officers, many retired early.
Missouri.
Fewer came into the ranks to protect and serve. And so you're coming
That
at an
tracks.
important time. I think President Trump, like he has with the military, has inspired the men and women on the front lines to serve. You're helping, I think, restore that with your focus on violent crime, your focus on fraud. I heard one of my colleagues say that this is the most troubled Department of Justice in history. I happen to live through the previous administration, where you had a Department of Justice completely weaponized against political opponents. They threatened
Oh my
to throw a
gosh.
political opponent in jail.
How do
ruin
these
his
people
family's lives.
sleep at night?
You were his lawyer to see some of that, and I was with you in a courtroom
Again,
in New York to witness
whether
that
or not
defense
you
in one of those
agree
cases.
that the previous administration
Were aimed
weaponized
against
the government
Catholics in this country who happen to attend
to
a traditional
pretend
Catholic
that
Latin
this
Mass,
administration
went
isn't
after
doing the
parents
exact
under
same
the
thing and
Patriot Act
worse
for showing up to school
is
board meetings
wild.
to object to critical race theory or the masking of their kids. We lived through Jack Smith, and the chairman has just revealed new revelations, of course, that he was reading text messages. By the way, Jack Smith testified under oath he didn't do that. He testified that they just had the phone logs. We know that's not true now. Jack Smith
Do you now?
should be subject to prosecution for lying to Congress.
Good luck with
So
that.
This weaponization, let's draw a
Good
distinction.
luck with that.
When you go after your political opponents, that is a weaponization. When you hold people accountable who weaponize the justice system, that's not the same thing. So you have a very important job. I want to highlight a few things that you've done in your time as
We're
as
right
acting
and
Attorney
you're
General, hopefully
wrong. It's like
as
when a
Attorney
Christian
General, you're
says when a good
confirmed.
thing happens,
You
it's of
created the
God, and when a
National
bad thing
Fraud
happens, it's of the
Enforcement
devil.
Division. I think this is very, very important.
That's
I think it's
literally
the tip
when
of the
something
iceberg
makes me feel
what we're
bad,
seeing
the
in
devil must be
Minneapolis,
involved. When
in
someone does,
California,
when
and
something
places that-
feels good,
that I think
it
the
must
work
be
will
a good
continue.
thing.
Carried out the
That's exactly what
largest
this
healthcare fraud
feels
takedown
like.
in department history, expanded the fight against Medicaid fraud after the $90 million Minnesota fraud takedown. You secured 6 fraud convictions involving more than $1.1 billion in less than 3 weeks. Cleared the backlog of
It's too bad we're
immigration
adding
cases,
$2
allowing for
trillion to the
deportation
national
or
debt.
deportations. You filed a historic number of denaturalization cases. You secured major anti-DEI wins against IBM and PayPal.
Yeah,
You
DEI
ended the
wins is not a
EEOC's
thing.
Racist disparate impact regime. You secured 450 years of prison time for Antifa members involved in the terrorist attacks against ICE. You prosecuted the Southern Poverty Law Center for secretly funneling millions of dollars to the KKK and neo-Nazis. That's a hell of a record in 100 days. But more work continues. I want to talk about a few things that I'd like to.
There
and I'm
is
gonna
no
allow you to
Antifa.
answer, to focus on. First, I think we have to break this sanctuary city scam, the system. To the people watching or listening at home, what is a sanctuary jurisdiction? Here's what it means. It means that if you are a criminal child rapist and you're here illegally and you've been released from prison, they will not tell federal immigration authorities that that person is being released. They would rather have that individual, that monster, released into the community than be deported. That's how sick this regime is. And so we were able to secure
You're right.
the ICE funding. I was able to
The
secure
Trump
the ICE
regime
funding,
is sick.
$350 million to clean up this mess, to allow ICE in those sanctuary jurisdictions to actually carry out those deportations. Sanctuary cities be damned. Will you use every tool that you have in your toolbox to go after these sanctuary jurisdictions?
I mean, absolutely. You just hit the nail on the head when you described one example, but there are thousands of examples of our law enforcement agents being put at risk because instead of going into a jail to arrest somebody or take somebody who's here illegally, even with a final order of deportation,
Whoop.
that individual gets released in the community, and it puts everybody in the community at risk. It puts law enforcement.
For racial gerrymandering and investigate credible evidence of straw donations, foreign contributions, identity fraud, and other illegal activity through ActBlue or other fundraising platforms.
Yes, of course, Senator, yes.
Thank you. Third, protect free speech from the new censorship machine. Search engines determine what information Americans find. We're more and more reliant on these things. App stores determine which platforms can reach the public.
Yes,
AI systems
that's called
increasingly determine which
capitalism, you
claims are treated as
dimwit.
true, false, respectable, extreme, or beyond discussion. Will you enforce a zero-tolerance policy for federal officials who pressure technology companies to suppress lawful speech and work with Congress to expose communications between federal agencies and the companies controlling search, social media, app distribution, and AI?
Absolutely, yes, Senator.
Thank you. I want to just give, for the 2.5 minutes I have left with my time, I guess give you an opportunity. You saw what happened to the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland and the dirtbag Jack Smith and under Joe Biden's regime.
I don't know what the hell's going on.
Jack Smith and under Joe Biden's regime. What
The internet is even tired of his bullshit. True. You guys still
What
hear me?
lessons
Oh.
do you draw from that?
Narco-terrorism, using our HSTF task forces, and above all, and just as importantly, is fraud and bringing money that is stolen from the American taxpayer and getting it back and putting the guys responsible and putting the guys responsible in prison. That's what I've learned, is that we can just go out and do our jobs, and we can do it. There'll be noise
Except
in
you're not
DC.
doing your
Like I
job
said,
because
we
the current
prosecuted
president is
nearly
doing it too.
100,000 informations and indictments since January 20th. We're talking about 3 or 4. And that's the message that I take to prosecutors around the country.
Thank you. And I also want to thank you early on with this administration in Kansas City, but specifically in St. Louis, working with the department, Kash Patel, others. St. Louis got the largest infusion of permanent FBI agents anywhere in the country, and they're helping clean up the streets. People feel safer. It's a great American turnaround as relates to crime. Those numbers hopefully will continue, and I look forward to working with you on those efforts as well.
Thank you. We will. Thank you,
Thanks.
Senator.
Before we take this 15-minute break, I wanted to say that from 12:30 till 1, I'll be in the Capitol to vote. Another Republican will chair the meeting, so we're going to go on through the noon hour. And so we'll take a break now, and we'll be back at 11:45, and Senator Blumenthal will be the first person to ask questions.
Well, okay. Diaper change? At least it's on East Coast time. It's true. Just so everyone knows, tomorrow, 9 p.m., I will also be live streaming Trump's big announcement, whatever the hell that is. Well, I mean, they'll have, what, 2 days to put something together? So they will. SNL will definitely do something about it. Scott, you still around? If it was West Coast time, that would be so funny. It would be kind of funny. Quick word. This is just a... Wait.
This is a quick word from our break time sponsor. Wait, let's give it a little. This is a quick word from our break time sponsor, Pampers. You too can be a really old man sitting in a chair, making decisions about things you don't understand. Pampers. Wear 'em high.
I don't know. What do you think the announcement tomorrow is? I do not know. I don't know. With this administration, I know even less than I did. I don't know. I know what the rumors were, and then they came back. The organization, the business, the media outlet that said what it was going to be about, then tweeted later that it wasn't about that. Oh no, I'm sure it won't be a huge waste of time at all. Thank you, Patty. I don't think it'll be about, I mean, maybe it will. I don't know. I don't know. With this president, who the hell knows? Yeah, it would actually be kind of funny if all he does is the same, basically the same thing he did the last time he did one of these announcements. I wonder how long he will speak. Well, you know, he's worried about falling asleep standing up, so I'm going to go with 20 or 30 minutes. I miss the days of law and regulations that could predict it no longer applies. Truth. Well, of course, he doesn't see much of a future left for himself. The man's friggin' 80. The guy is getting checked out at the hospital, what, every month or two? He can deem anything he wants invalid. It matters not. The president has no authority over elections in any way, shape, or form. So it does not matter what he says he believes. What matters are the 60+ court cases that went forth trying to overturn the results that were found to be baseless completely. He's gotten an annual checkup at least 4 times now. Yeah, basically once every couple months he's getting another annual checkup. That I'm sure involves his cognitive abilities. I just read that they're going to be doing gold $1 coins with his face on it. We'll see. Our country is being led by yes. Narcissist too. Oh, aortic dissection. Look, like I said, I will never celebrate the loss of life of someone, but I am not sorry that that man can no longer do what he has been doing. I think I'll buy one of those and place it on a railroad track. That would actually be hilarious. Just get it re-stamped. Because everything is a conspiracy theory, Sabrina. That's why. When you don't understand the world, everything is a conspiracy theory. Morning, Kevin. I do, Birdie. This is off topic, but I just don't get it. So the elections that occurred under Obama and Biden's national intelligence where Trump won, there was no fraud, according to Trump. But under all of Trump's presidencies, there was fraud. Yes. That is the, in general, Rex, exactly what they're trying to say. Yep. That there is fraud under Trump's administration, but not under Obama and Biden's. That is exactly what they're saying. Yep. That's it. They don't realize that's what they're saying, but that's what they're saying. It's kind of wild, isn't it? Again, the world we live in. The world we live in. And here's the thing, Birdie, and I hear what you're saying. And again, my personality, I wouldn't either. But the thing that keeps coming to my mind when it comes to all this is what would we have wished if we were living back in the 1930s and 40s and we were talking about the man who controlled Germany at that time? Would we have wished a dissection on him? I feel sometimes that again, I hear what you're saying, but in the same respect, how much pain does a man need to cause for us to go changing our statement from never wish to being okay with it? You know what I mean? Like, I understand there's this desire in all of us that we shouldn't wish, celebrate or wish poor on the dead or speak ill of the dead. And I'm like, the stuff that man did for 12 years, said and did, that hurt people, as much? No. But how much, what's the line for the amount of unaliving that's okay? What is the line? If the choices and the things that he stood up for, and again, could you argue, considering the amount of innocent civilians that lost their life in the Middle East because of what that man has supported? For depending on who you're talking about, there could be an argument for that. I'm not sure I would agree with it, but I think there could be an argument for it. Again, we either have a line or we don't have a line. I am not saying that everything that man did was bad, but I will not pretend that he was a good man.
Proceed.
Proceed then.
Thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Blanche. Thank you for being here. Thank you to your family. And I want to join in thanking the
It's
men
empty
and
in
women of
there.
the
That's
Department of Justice,
ridiculous.
for their service. I want to begin where maybe we have some common ground. You would agree that the Islamic Republic of Iran is well known to detain, torture, even kill political dissidents, including evangelical Christians, would you not?
Yes, Senator, they have done that, yes.
And last week, the Iranian American Legal Defense Fund filed a lawsuit alleging that the Trump administration has adopted a policy of collaborating with the Islamic Republic of Iran to provide details about asylum applicants. This is the United States government providing information regularly and frequently to the Iranian government about Iranian nationals who are seeking asylum here in the United States. These are declarations made under oath before the court about high officials stationed here with Iran getting information from the United States government, and then the American government deporting hundreds of individuals, including evangelical Christians, back to Iran, where they face torture, imprisonment, potential death. Were you or the Department of Justice consulted about this policy?
Well, that's not our policy, Senator. We would never send somebody home to be tortured. That's not what the American people would expect of us. That's certainly not what President Trump does. So I'm not familiar with the lawsuit you're talking about, but there's no such policy.
Will you commit to investigate these allegations?
I know nothing about the lawsuit. I will, when you say commit to investigate allegations, we don't do that. But certainly if the lawsuit needs to be answered and part of that includes investigation, absolutely.
Well, you do investigate allegations of illegality. This policy would clearly be not only illegal,
There is
but
no such
morally
policy.
repugnant, would it not? You've agreed with me that it should not be the policy of the United States to do it.
But in your question, you're suggesting there is such a policy. I'm telling you there is no such policy.
Well, if there is no such policy, then I presume you would investigate it.
When I see the lawsuit, I'm just not familiar with it. We will, of course, do what's
But
appropriate.
you'd agree with me that it would be wrong.
That it would be wrong, meaning it would be wrong to send somebody home to be tortured, yes.
Let me ask you about allegations in connection with David.
Policy doesn't have
Gentile.
to be
I
written.
think we
Also
talked
true.
about these allegations when you visited me. Thank you for coming to my office. In May of 2025, David Gentile was sentenced to 7 years in prison for his role in an almost $1.8 billion Ponzi-like scheme that defrauded over 10,000 investors, many of them middle-class retirees.
Billionaires
of
must
their
love the
hard-earned
state of
savings,
chaos the
and
government is in right now. Yeah, they're
he
getting away with a
was
lot of stuff right now.
imprisoned. He boasted to fellow inmates and others that he was going to be released because he paid $2.5 million for clemency. Evidence collected by the Eastern District of New York supported those allegations and reportedly also included statements by Father Frank Mann that he spoke to the president about David Gentile. The Eastern District of New York was investigating these allegations and reportedly received a call from one of your top deputies instructing them about the concerns of the Department of Justice. The investigation was stopped by the Eastern District of New York. I wrote to you on June 23rd and United States Attorney Joseph Nacella about these allegations that an investigation into this impropriety was shut down at the request of your office. Did you have any involvement or knowledge about the commutation of.
I know
Mr.
why they
Gentili's
do
son.
this, but I also just find it also annoying.
As I've said a couple times today, has full authority to pardon or commute anybody convicted of federal crime.
That's not my question.
So I'm answering your question, Senator.
Did you
I'm answering
know
your
about
question. What my communications with President Trump, I will not talk about. He does not, nor should he. He has no obligation to discuss pardon or commutation decisions with me, and he has not. As far as what you just suggested about an investigation, I believe you're referring to a news article that was the result of apparent leaks, and I would caution that there's falsehoods in those news articles.
I'm asking you whether you had any involvement in.
All you have to
committing that
answer is
sentence
no.
Or in stopping the investigation into.
Or
the
yes.
allegations of impropriety, possibly payment to Father Frank Mann.
And I answered the first question, but when you say stopping an investigation, there's an assumption built into your question that I will not concede. We will not talk about whether investigations exist or don't exist, and certainly some leak about something that we supposedly did doesn't warrant an answer either.
There was an investigation, correct?
That's my whole point in saying is that there's an assumption baked into your question.
Why
that I don't
can't
think
you
is
say
true,
whether there
meaning
even
that
is an
we cannot
investigation?
comment on even the existence of investigations
You've
like that.
commented this morning to Republican colleagues about several investigations.
No, I haven't.
Well, you commented in response to the chairman about the FISA investigation,
About the what? Excuse me?
the investigation that he asked you about.
So, Senator, my point is that you're asking me questions about a news article, the source of which was apparently leaks. It would be inappropriate for me as the acting attorney general to comment on such leaks or news articles that you're referencing. But when it goes
I accept that you're not going to answer my question, but I think there is a need for the Inspector General to look into
You mean the Attorney General?
investigation that was apparently, according to these articles and other information, stopped as a result of your intervention. Let me move on. In 2017, more than 10,000 9/11 victims filed suit against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That lawsuit is heading to trial. Information was promised by President Trump in September of 2019. That information has not been provided. Will you commit to meet with those families and provide the information they need for their lawsuit?
Folks from my office have met with the representatives of those families. We will commit to continuing to have communications, of course.
And provide the information they're seeking?
Well, you're saying, I don't know what the information is you're talking about. So obviously I can't just commit to providing the information.
Well, let's talk about other information. Information about the Epstein abuses. Your predecessor apologized.
And this is the thing, right? I don't care whether you're
the
Republican or
Epstein
Democrat at
with
this
good reason.
point. This whole
Because,
thing
as
is
you said
ridiculous
today,
because I
mistakes
feel
were
like
made.
the answer
I'm
is
asking you,
I can't tell you
today,
anything that you want to know.
Epstein survivors
So
in
everyone's just
this
gonna
room to apologize.
the
to them.
Republicans are just gonna vote for him and
So
the
my heart
Democrats aren't.
breaks for every victim of any sexual crime, whether it's involving Mr. Epstein or somebody else. And so if you're asking me to apologize that this happened to them, of course, absolutely. This is a horrible thing, which is why this Department of Justice, this administration is focused very heavily on going after these predators. And so, yes,
There
of
you
course,
are.
that's part of my job as being
Bullshit.
empathetic to the
Will
victims
you
of crime.
apologize to them for the mishandling and mistakes that were made by the United States Department of Justice?
I will absolutely say that any mistake that we made should not have been made. And I very much, I can answer the question, or you can just interrupt me, Senator, but I am answering your question. I very much, and I have said this to anybody that asks and publicly before, any mistake that was made is not appropriate. And so, yes, I am sorry that in about 1% of the documents, mistakes were made. But what I will say on top of that is we put tons of resources to rectifying those mistakes immediately, including pulling down documents within minutes of being informed that there were mistakes, potential mistakes made, and working 24/7 to rectify any mistakes. And that's what I would expect the victims would want us to do, and their counsel and this body as well.
And you would agree with me, wouldn't you, that you can well meet with any of the survivors or victims with their counsel present? You said you can't meet with them, but you could meet with them if they're
I never
counsel
said
with
I
them.
can't meet with them. I said if they were represented, I had to meet through counsel. But of course, I can meet with them. I'm the acting Attorney General of the United States, so yes, I can. I very strongly believe that if for these victims to tell their stories and the evidence that they have, they should meet, like any victim of a crime, with the FBI or a law enforcement agent, and that we will do everything we can to prosecute if we can.
The judge in Florida referred your misconduct. She concluded that there was misconduct and misrepresentation and improper purpose in that legal action to the bar of New York for potential discipline, including losing your law license. I know you disagree with the result of the ruling. Has that kind of referral ever happened by a federal judge for an Attorney General of the United States?
Can you?
I don't know, but I'll tell you something. That judge never asked us to respond. She never gave us an opportunity to respond to anything, and she didn't
So?
refer me. She just asked that a copy of the order be provided to the New York bar, because there's several activist groups that have filed complaints against me. So listen, as I've said earlier, I think anybody on this committee, especially the lawyers that have practiced, can read that opinion and reach their own conclusions. But I very much disagree with the judge's
Oh, I'm sure you
insinuations
disagree
about
with
me. And we're going to do what we can to make that right.
One last question. Would you agree with me that agents of the United States should not fire into cars unless fire their weapons into cars unless there is an imminent threat?
Give a short answer to that.
There's a well-established standard as to when an agent can discharge their firearm, and I think that's something that should be followed in every case.
And that includes not firing weapons into cars.
Mr. Chair.
Do you want to respond to?
I mean, there's not really a response. It requires federal agents to follow the rules.
Then let's move on. Before I call on Senator Britt, I want another letter supporting the nominee from the American Border Story, a national organization representing 300 angel families. Quoting from the letter, the families we work with are not focused on politics. They want leaders who take crime seriously, who understand the national security implications of open border criminal
Or open butter criminal.
and who will prioritize victims over ideology. We believe Todd Blanche
Gotta love that open
understands
butter
that
criminal.
responsibility and would approach the office of Attorney General with seriousness it demands, end of quote, without objection. That'll be entered in the record. Senator Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think that's an excellent segue. I appreciate your commitment to all of the victims, the Epstein
I
victims,
cannot
your
stand
commitment to hear from them
Brit.
and fight for them. Thank you for saying that today. I only wish that my Democratic colleagues had that same level of conviction when it came to meeting with the families of those who have lost loved ones at the hands of illegal aliens. So thank you for that letter. Thank you for your commitment.
How many people
I
have
can
lost their
only
life
hope
at the
that they will
hands of
answer the
American
call and meet with
citizens?
their own constituencies who unfortunately
How many people have lost their lives at the hands
dear.
of American
Mr. Blanche,
citizens?
I want to applaud the work that you and DOJ have done to reduce crime and violent crime across the country. We've heard it a number of times here today, both in the chairman's opening, to Senator Moody talking about it, to you talking about it. We currently have the lowest murder rate that we've had since 1900. When you're looking at violent crime arrest, we are up 184%. This is real results. This is what you're supposed to be doing, keeping Americans safe. We know that you've done that through a number
Arrests
of ways.
doesn't mean
task
convictions.
force and joint operations,
By the way,
interagency
I do want to make that
cooperation.
clear.
We've seen the forces,
Arrests
those task
doesn't
forces, successfully
mean
pursue numerous
convictions.
cases in our state related to major drug trafficking, related to firearms trafficking, all of which has been linked to, in many cases, broader criminal enterprises. So
She
we're
pushes
glad
the
that our
wheelchairs.
children are safer and that our communities are safer. What I'd like to know from you, because we've seen in Alabama this have tremendous results.
I saw.
We've even seen
I saw, Snarky.
in one
Thank
case
you.
a corrupt local law enforcement officer in the Southern District of Alabama who had engaged in a range of criminal activities in his capacity as an officer being held accountable through this work. Based on what I've seen in Alabama, I hope that you continue this all across the country. Can you speak to the work of these task forces and the success that you've seen and how you intend to build upon this work moving forward, if and when confirmed?
Yes. So the Homeland Security Task Force regime that we've set up in every single state and every single district in this country is designed to do just what you were describing. So work not just with the federal government, not just DOJ, but to work with Department of Homeland Security, sheriffs, cops, local prosecutors, local law enforcement, and assistant U.S. attorneys to go into that community and eradicate it of human trafficking, drug dealers, narco-terrorism, and the results, it's been set up for almost a year in most places, and the results are evident in the statistics that we show, but they're really more evident when I go out to U.S. attorneys' offices and meet with HSTF groups like I do all the time. To a person, they say, this is what we needed forever. This is what works. Having law enforcement get together in a room and say, we need to tackle this gang, or this apartment building has a drug problem, or even this individual needs to be targeted because he's a violent felon and needs to go off the streets. It's basic law enforcement that I've done for a long time, that President Trump echoes and trumpets and has done since January 20th. And that's why, I think that's why we're seeing the success that we're seeing, and we're not slowing down. HSTFs are up and running, full speed ahead, and I hope that we continue to still see the results that we've seen over the past 10 months or so.
Thank you for your commitment to that and all the work that you've done. I want to take a brief moment. Our distinguished and late colleague, Senator Graham, was excited about your nomination. He was passionate about many things, which we saw here in this committee, just in amazing ways. One of the things that he was a champion of was the unborn, and that is a deeply held conviction that we both have. And I want to talk to you and address the issue of the chemical abortion drug that we have seen just spread coast to coast. As you know, pursuant to a Biden-era administrative action, the FDA, there is no longer an in-person dispensing requirement in place for the drug, for mifepristone. It allows it to literally be dispersed across state lines, all across the country.
Yep.
We are
So it should be.
losing children,
No, we're not.
and we are putting women in harm's way.
No,
Look, it has no
the getting rid
oversight,
of
no
Roe v. Wade is
safeguard.
what's putting women in harm's way.
I
but
got to hear the story
thanks for playing.
of Jonna Afholder, who's here with us today, and I am so grateful for her willingness to be here. But I got to hear it firsthand yesterday. I know many people have read her story in recent news articles.
Senator Britt
about
enrages me
her
in every
then boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend, a doctor, no less, actually forcing
every
a
time she
crushed
speaks.
abortion pill into her mouth in the middle of the night.
And you think that
and
wasn't
taking
happening?
Her keys, holding her hostage so that she could not go get help.
Before you could
This is
easily get in,
sick
before
and
you could easily
twisted
get
and
abortions,
must
people used to like
he used his ex-wife's
literally
information
physically
to buy those drugs online,
hurt women
to
to
kill
get
his
them
own child,
to cause abortions.
and to endanger Jonna's life. And sadly, her story is one of many. And so can you commit to me today that this administration and DOJ will prioritize taking meaningful and thoughtful action to address the dangers that occurred in the current status quo to women all over this country?
Absolutely, Senator. And it's not only what the Department of Justice can do, but it's what the FDA is doing right now for the first time in a decade, actually doing real studies about the safety.
There have been real studies on the safety, you imbecile.
I've seen video myself of what appears to be pills coming even from overseas to young women, and doesn't matter who applies for it, anybody can get it. There's no instructions. They just come dumped out of a little plastic bag, and it's wrong, and I very much commit our resources to stopping this.
Thank you very much. I want to turn to an issue that I also raised with former Attorney General Bondi, and that's illegal offshore gaming and the concern in the rise of illegal gaming amongst minors. In 2024, a study found that individuals who began gambling before the age of 18 are 50% more likely to develop an addiction to gambling. This has become a major issue among America's youth, in particular America's young men. Just last year in the Northern District of Alabama, we saw a case where 10 men pleaded guilty to managing a sports betting operation and accepted over $2 billion in wagers via an offshore server located in Costa Rica.
I mean,
Senator
I
Blumenthal
hate
and I have
gambling,
worked together on this
so
issue and recently introduced the GAME Act, which would prohibit social media companies and advertising websites from targeting minors with sports betting advertising online. We also sent a letter to DOJ encouraging the department to use its existing statutory authorities to pursue injunctive relief and to block illegal offshore gaming operations. I want to tell you how much I appreciate the response. It was very substantive.
get rid of offshore
that I
and
got to that
onshore
letter. Can
gaming,
you also commit to me
gambling.
today that you're going to make this issue a priority and take robust action to combat the reach of illegal gaming operations within the United States, and then in particular the targeting of minors through this?
Yes, Senator, absolutely.
Thank you.
Minors
the U.S. Census
or
Bureau
adults.
reported over a decade between 2010 and 2020 that the over 65 population of the United States experienced the largest ever 10-year numeric gain and percentage point increase in terms of share of the overall population. In its annual report to Congress last December, the FTC noted that total fraud losses by older Americans defined as age of 60 and older increased almost fourfold from 2020 to 2024, shooting up from $600 million in 2020 to $2.4 billion in 2024. As our society ages, and it will continue to be a problem that we must take robust action to address, particularly given technological advances and other ways that this fraud is occurring. I introduced the GUARD Act with Senator Gillibrand, and it would allow state and local law enforcement agencies and to use certain federal grant funding to utilize blockchain for investigating financial fraud. It also permit federal law enforcement to assist state and local law enforcement with tracing tools for blockchain technology. I'm thrilled it was reported out of this committee by voice vote earlier this year. I know that DOJ has programs in place like Elder Justice Initiative, but can you speak specifically to DOJ's efforts with respect to elder financial fraud and the extent to which we will work to continue to make this a priority under your leadership and the importance of collaboration with state and local law enforcement officers as we work to bring justice to these people who have been abused?
Yes, Senator. We are very focused, not only at Maine Justice, but at every U.S. Attorney's Office on protecting our elderly who are absolutely victims of scams of any sort, and many of the scams are coming from overseas, from Burma, and from these literally entire buildings filled with individuals cold calling our senior citizens, trying to get them to give them money or send them money. And so we've charged I think over 300 this year alone. We'll keep on doing that, and it has been a priority, as it should be, and it will remain a priority of the department to target these criminals, again, many of whom are not even in this country, going after our senior citizens.
Thank you so much for your service, and I look forward to supporting your nomination.
Thank you, Senator.
Before I call on Senator Rona, I have another letter for the nominee supporting Mr. Blanche from the Americans United for Life, a pro-life organization. I quote, "Mr. Blanche's commitment to respecting human life is evident in his actions as acting Attorney General. We at Americans United for Life are confident in Mr. Blanche's commitment to a fair and even application of law," end of quote. Without objection, it'll be entered in the record.
Guys,
Senator Ronald.
everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Blanche. to
T,
ensure
the
fitness
correct
to
response
serve
is,
of
I'm
all
sorry.
nominees who come before any of my committees.
I did not mean to
I asked
offend.
the following two initial questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever
don't
made
need to just-
unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a
Because
sexual
if you didn't mean to
nature?
offend, then you
No,
didn't mean
Senator.
to offend.
Have
Just
you ever
apologize.
faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
Mr. Blanche, over the course of the past 5 months, the New Mexico Department of Justice has talked to your staff about getting access to information for its investigation into an alleged crime at Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch. Will you and your team continue to cooperate with the New Mexico Department of Justice and help it get the information it needs?
Yes, we're continuing to work with them, and yes.
Thank
yes,
you.
Senator.
Mr. Blanche, at an April 8th press conference, a reporter asked you a question about President Trump's desire to see his perceived political enemies prosecuted. You answered, quote, "That is his right, and indeed it is his duty to do that."
Not much longer.
To clarify, Mr. Blanche, do you believe it is the president's right and duty to order the investigation or prosecution of his perceived enemies? Yes or no?
I can't answer that yes or no. That wasn't the question, and my answer was that as the president of the United States under Article 2, he's in charge of the Department of Justice, and so my answer reflects that idea, not that he
I
has
think
a
what
right
the-
to go after his political enemies.
Reclaiming my time, I think that what the president meant was pretty clear, and I just wanted to know.
All right, guys.
whether,
I do need to get
um,
off. I do have stuff I got to do today. Feel free to keep watching. I'll probably have it on just to hear, but I'm just going to probably end up getting annoyed anyways. But guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and seeing this. Tomorrow in the morning, obviously will be a normal, but tomorrow night I'll be watching the president's announcement, whatever the hell that is. That should be interesting. If you're not following over here, follow over on the TikTok, follow over on the Tube, watch the videos of the people that I've interviewed. Just put up a new one talking about the whole Plattner thing and women in politics. So make sure you go over and watch. You guys are amazing just the way you are, and I love you all very much. Stay safe, stay healthy, remember to sing, laugh, dance, smile, do something that makes you happy. Bye, guys.